Good afternoon, and welcome to the annual Gwen Ifill Forum. I am Brian Norman, Dean of the Gwen Ifill College of Media, Arts, and Humanities at Simmons University in Boston, where we have been committed to women's education, everyday leadership, and social justice since 1899. On behalf of President Lynn Perry Wooten, I welcome the over 800 people who registered for today's event from across the nation. I want to thank the incredible team who made today possible in Ifill College, especially Doris Lynn and Donna Stewartson, and all of our partners in advancement, marketing, IT, and the President's Office. A special welcome to students at our watch party on the residential campus, sponsored by the Multicultural Center. And a special thanks to members of the Dean's Advisory Council and also Simmons board member Bert Ifill, Gwen Ifill's brother, who has been a font of support and wisdom from the very beginning. Gwen Ifill was a trailblazing Black woman journalist, an icon of excellence, and a beloved alumna of Simmons University. Next week will mark the 5th anniversary of her passing. All who knew her as friend, colleague, mentor, or trusted face of the news miss her dearly every day. And so when Simmons named a college after Gwen Ifill in 2018, it became the second college ever to be named after a Black woman in the United States, 87 years after Bethune-Cookman in Florida. And Simmons accepted the honor and the responsibility to carry on Gwen Ifill's legacy for the next generation and for the community who lifted her up, some of whom are here with us today. And that mission drives all that we do. The Gwen Ifill Forum is one of the most direct ways we honor our namesake by asking hard questions and have conversations that matter. Last year, we had a conversation on facing hard truths with Ava DuVernay, Sherilyn Ifill, and Michelle Norris. And we knew that no matter what the results of the presidential election, there would be hard truths to face. And this year, when I sought guidance from the Dean's Advisory Council, we landed on truth, resilience, and democracy. This past year, a global pandemic profoundly changed daily life. It amplified inequities and required extraordinary individual and community resilience. At the same time, a long-awaited racial reckoning fundamentally challenged US democratic institutions in the face of systemic voter suppression and an armed insurrection in the Capitol. And so today we invite compelling voices into a conversation that asks hard questions about resilience, both personal and in our democratic institutions, and the possibilities for community, racial justice, and civic life in a profoundly divided nation. Like today's distinguished panelists, Gwen Ifill believed in leaving the Beltway to find a different way to tell a story and to bring people together through a commitment to truth, curiosity, and the idea of an informed democratic public. In 2015, she told students, "In life and in politics, transformation frequently unfolds as we are glancing the other way." And so today, let's try to glance in the right direction together. Today's conversation will be moderated by Traci Griffith, herself a former journalist and scholar of race and media ethics, who we welcome to the Simmons faculty this year. And I'm delighted she will be joined by 2 Simmons students. The initial conversation will last until about 4 p.m. before opening up questions to the audience. There are 2 modes of engaging. If you have questions for the panelists, please submit them using the Q&A box, using the icon labeled Q&A in your Zoom menu bar. For all other comments, you can use the chat function. Feel free to take a moment now to type hello and tell us where you're calling from. And finally, auto-generated closed captioning is available. You can click the CC button in the menu bar to turn it on. Let's begin with this year's Gwen Ifill Next Generation Award. The award recognizes someone who embodies our namesake's legacy through professional excellence, civic engagement, and mentoring the diversity and talents of the next generation in their field. To confer the award, I am so honored to welcome our guest, Michelle Norris, herself a trailblazer, one of the best columnists around, a member of the Dean's Advisory Council, and one of Gwen's dearest friends. Michelle?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us on this tremendous day. And I have the tremendous honor to confer the Next Generation Award to Robin Roberts. She is so well deserving of this award. Dean Norman talked about looking for someone who embodies all that Gwen stands for. And we saw in that opening graphic the idea that change comes from listening, learning, caring, and conversation. And Robin represents all of these things. When I think about Gwen's legacy and how that lives on in Robin's work and Robin's spirit, there are a few things that come to mind. One of Gwen's secret powers, her superpower perhaps, was that she was able to fully be herself all the time, be herself full stop on camera. And anyone who spent time on camera knows that that's hard. We know that there are people who change their voice, who change their appearance, who put on a mask when they go on camera. Gwen was not doing that. And she was not doing that in part because she knew that she had something special to share. And why would she ever mask that? And she knew that in doing so, she was beating a path for other people who didn't have to feel like they had to pull on a mask or appropriate some other kind of person to be fully in that chair. And Robin, we see you do that every day. We see the way that you use your smarts and your smile and your heart to do muscular journalism every morning. Gwen also talked about being strong. And I think that that is one of the important parts of her legacy. And we see that in you as well. I think there is probably a direct through line from the day that you sat down with President Barack Obama in 2012 and asked questions that others were afraid to ask, and you crossed your leg and you did this thing that we see you do where you put your hands together and we know here comes a question, here comes a zinger, and you asked him about same-sex marriage when people were afraid to do that. And there's probably a direct through line from that to the day that Gwen Ifill, many times that she did this, questioning vice presidential candidates about AIDS, questioning Tim Russert on his own TV show, sitting on his set about his friendship with a man who had said awful things about Black women and awful things about her in particular, and asking him why he could continue to support someone who offended her. And doing that again, not just to lean against the offense to her, but understanding that she was standing up for those Rutgers basketball players, for my daughter, who was Gwen's goddaughter, who she mentioned on that day, and knowing that she was standing up for them. And I think just as so many young people look at Gwen with their dreams and ambitions, I think they look to you, Robin Renee Roberts, as well. Gwen talked about being a beacon of trust. And I know that you represent that in such an elegant way. And I say elegant because who else turns on the TV in the morning to see what is Robin wearing today? How high are those heels that she's wearing today? But it's not just about the fashion statement. It's about the statement that you make through the questions you ask, through the role that you play in deciding what is important and what is going to be in that first segment. We know that you shape that broadcast and you stand as a beacon of trust in doing that. And the other thing that is important in remembering Gwen's legacy is that she stood as a beacon. And even though she's no longer with us, she still does today. Her legacy lives strong. Her beacon stands as a lighthouse to help us remember the importance of journalism and the importance of journalistic standards. And I think, Robin, in fact, I know, Robin, that you represent that as well. Gwen's life and her legacy is like a mighty river with many tributaries. And every time one of these awards is conferred, another tributary breaks off in another direction that continues her life, her spirit, her legacy, and continues in the work of standing as a beacon for truth and justice and journalism with a capital J. I am so honored to represent Simmons and the Gwen Ifill School in conferring the Next Generation Award to Robin Renee Roberts. Please join me in applauding this award. You more than deserve this. You go, girl.
Oh, Michelle, my belle. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am truly honored. It's a beautiful award. And it's hard to, after what you just said, and you said it so well. And that's why this means so much, because of the name that it bears, Gwen Ifill. I was telling folks earlier when we were prepping for this that I still have the last voicemail that she left me on my phone. I refuse to delete it. And she will never be deleted from our memories and from the example that she set. And she and I, we have a lot in common. You referred to much of it. She was a preacher's kid, and she was told that you always had to do right because somebody was always watching. My father, Colonel Lawrence E. Roberts, a Tuskegee Airman, was a colonel in the Air Force at a time when many men who looked like him were not a high-ranking official officer. And so the Roberts kid we had to act right because we knew people were watching. And you could get bitter and mean about that. We held our shoulders back, much like Gwen did, and said, we are going to exceed expectations. And you have to change the way you think in order to change the way you feel. And to be a journalist as you are, and you know we are storytellers, and we are beacons of truth, not beliefs, because that's something Gwen often said too, that sometimes we confuse belief with truth. And so I always strive to have the story that I'm telling, the report. I want it to cause a reaction that's going to lead to action, that people are going to see that report, hear that story, and go like, what can I do? And that is something that Gwen did in everything that she did, whether it was moderating a debate. And wasn't that something when we saw her up there moderating more than holding her own. And we also shared the journey of cancer. And as women of color, to be told that we are less likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer, and that was one form that she had, and I did too in 2007, to be told that we're less likely to be diagnosed, but more likely to die if we are diagnosed. And for both of us not to shy away from that. And though the outcome for Gwen was not what we prayed for and hoped for, it was every bit as meaningful and valiant as mine, and those of us that are here still living with the disease as I am. So I am very grateful. Next generation, we're going to be seeing some next generations. I can't wait for this forum discussion that we are going to have. And again, thank you. And Michelle Norris, my friend, it means so much that you were the one to present it to me. Thank you so very, very much. And looking forward to the forum discussion. Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you, Robin. And President Wooten, to you now.
Thank you. Congratulations, Robin. Your work as a trailblazing Black woman leader, broadcaster, and journalist truly epitomize the spirit of the Next Generation Award, which is designed to recognize a leader who's committed to carrying on Gwen Ifill's work of fostering civil dialogue and informed citizenry. I also want to thank Michelle Norris for taking time out of her busy schedule to present the award today. It means so much to us on the behalf of everyone here at Simmons. I thank you, Michelle. Now I want to turn our attention to today's panel discussion. As you know, the annual Ifill Forum carries on the legacy of Simmons alumna Gwen Ifill by bringing together important national voices for public conversation on key issues of the day. We are incredibly fortunate to have a tremendous guest panel who will discuss the theme of truth, resilience, and democracy. Timely topics given the events in the era that we live in. Gwen Ifill once spoke of truth as an elusive concept. And she cautioned us that it is human instinct to confuse belief and truth. These words seem especially relevant today as 2021 has in many ways been a battle between truth versus beliefs. Truths and beliefs are associated with the global pandemic. Truths and beliefs are associated about politics and the events of January the 6th. And truths about the continued instance of racial, social, and economic events and injustices in our nation. The COVID-19 pandemic and other events of the past year have not only required us of great resiliency, they have tested our democracy and raised questions about the future. Today's discussion will allow our panelists to take a deeper dive into these topics. As we engage in this important conversation, I encourage each of us to consider how we can use our skills, our talents, and our passion to foster truth and resiliency so that we can drive meaningful change. This is the foundation of a crucial concept that I call everyday leadership. Now, I would like to turn the conversation over to Simmons University student Kate Farrell and Kylie Collins, who will introduce our distinguished panelists.
I have the honor of introducing Mr. Kevin Merida. He is the executive editor of the Los Angeles Times, and he took the helm of the largest news gathering organization in the West in June of 2021, and oversees the newsroom as well as the Times Community News and the Los Angeles Times en Español. Previously, Merida was the senior vice president at ESPN and editor-in-chief of The Undefeated, a multimedia platform that explores the intersections of race, sports, and culture. Merida arrived at ESPN in November of 2015 and launched The Undefeated in May of 2016. Under his leadership, The Undefeated gradually expanded across the Walt Disney Corporation with a content portfolio that ranged from award-winning journalism to documentaries and television specials, from albums and music videos to live events, digital talk shows, and 2 best-selling children's books. During his tenure at ESPN, he also oversaw the investigative news enterprise unit, the television shows E60 and Outside the Lines, and chaired ESPN's editorial board. Before joining ESPN, Merida spent 22 years at the Washington Post as a congressional correspondent, national political reporter, long-form feature writer, magazine columnist, and senior editor in several roles. He led the national staff for 4 years during the Obama presidency and was managing editor, overseeing news and feature covers for nearly 3 years. During his tenure as managing editor, he helped lead the Post to 4 Pulitzer Prizes, and the newspaper embarked on a digital transformation that made it one of the fastest growing news organizations in the country. Prior to the Post, from 1983 to 1999, Merida worked at the Dallas Morning News as a special projects reporter, local political writer, national correspondent based in Washington, White House correspondent covering the George H.W. Bush presidency, and assistant managing editor in charge of foreign and national news coverage. In 1990, Merida was a part of a report on the world's hidden wars. Merida began his career at the Milwaukee Journal, where he worked from 1979 to 1983 as a general assignment reporter. He is the co-author of Supreme Discomfort, The Divided Soul of Clarence Thomas, and best-selling Obama, The Historic Campaign in Photographs. He is a contributor to and editor of the anthology Being a Black Man at the Corner of Progress and Peril, based on an award-winning Washington Post series that he led. Merida is a 1979 graduate of Boston University and of the summer program for minority journalists at UC Berkeley. Merida's honors include being named Journalist of the Year in 2000 by the Distinguished National Association of Black Journalists and receiving the Missouri Honors Medal for Distinguished Service in Journalism in 2018 and receiving the NABJ's Chuck Stone Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020. He serves on the Pulitzer Prize Board, the Boston University Board of Trustees, and the boards of W. Burr FM in Boston, the Kaiser Family Foundation, the Maynard Institute for Journalism Education, the Philip Merrill College of Journalism at the University of Maryland, the Wallace House at the University of Michigan, and the Gwen Ifill College of Media, Arts, and Humanities at Simmons University. He lives in Los Angeles with his wife, award-winning writer and former Washington Post columnist Donna Britt, and they have 3 sons, actor Daryl Britt Gibson and screenwriter Justin Britt Gibson, who also live in LA, and podcast host and producer Sky Merida. Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. That was a lot. Thank you, Kylie.
Well, it's so good to be here with everyone. We are so excited to get going with our panelists, and I'd like to say welcome to our student watch party that's going on. Kylie and Kate will do you proud, Simmons students. Welcome, Robin Roberts. We are so glad to have you with us, and Kevin Merida as well. So let's get this started. I think our first question, maybe let's go to Kevin first, and maybe then Robin can chime in as well. So a huge aspect of Gwen's commitment to her profession was the ability to be fair and impartial. And yet a recent survey revealed that 36% of Americans believe that their news has a fair amount of bias. And an additional 20% says there's a lot of bias. What's contributed to that belief, right? And how can journalists rebuild the trust that we had in recent years?
Well, first of all, that's a really hard question. I mean, I want to say not only am I, that was a fantastic introduction, maybe too much. I love listening to Robin, talk about, and yeah, I've always so admired how she goes about journalism. I think that journalism and her model is one way we do connect people to the truth. And my other friend, Michelle, her work as well. I think that, we've had a lot of challenges to our profession, but it's not unique. I mean, we've had challenges throughout like my entire career. There've been, our profession was in different polls over the years, and it goes back in the early stages of the career. We ranked like among the lowest in trust and believability at different times. I think part of it is the nature of our profession, because we take on tough topics. People don't always want to hear what we report and write and produce. And that has increased in the digital era. Some of it's just a product of consumption habits. There's the ability to really have, you can create your own platform with your own ideology, your own belief system. You can publish material that draws people that believe in that belief system, and in all of the ways in which we all try to get subscribers and readers and audiences. The people who don't have truth do the same. I mean, the people who have a belief system do the same. And so it helps to pull at the fabric of just what is truth. We argue a lot today over what is truth. And, and this happens in an era when we have doubled down on fact checkers. I was at the Washington Post and helped create the fact checker that is now. I mean, talk Glenn Kessler into doing it at a time we didn't want to do it. And it's become a really important institution for the Washington Post. There's PolitiFact, there's lots of other news organizations do it. And yet that doesn't always penetrate, even when you show them clearly where the lines are true. So some of it is the way society is consuming information, and some of it is out of our control. I think what is under our control is to try to represent our profession more. A lot of professions market themselves and what they do better than we do. I think some of we have to have our own commercials about what we do. We have to, I think, go to places and be present. And I think not only in the ways in which we're doing it today on Zoom, but in person when we can, and go in and show people our work with the people behind it. Talk about our work, engage audiences. I think we have to be active. I think it's not enough for us today to simply produce our work and stand back and watch it be consumed. But we have to talk about our work, let people know how we got to that, and really engage the debates about our work and the attacks on it.
Robin, maybe as a follow-up to that, as people who tell stories, how are we so bad at telling our own story? In terms of who we are and what we do? Why is there that disconnect with the public, not understanding journalism?
Yeah, vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. And I think sometimes we're afraid to be vulnerable and to share who we are. But can I just say, preach, Kevin, just preach. I mean, everything. I don't know if you saw me. I was just shaking my head, everything that he was saying, and truly honored to be on the panel with him. It is a tough, and Gwen said it very well in saying that when you're doing it, and I feel the same way, when I'm doing my job right, it's because you don't know what I think. You should not know as a journalist where I stand on the issue that I'm bringing forth. That's not my job. My job is to present the facts, not a version of the facts, but the facts, and then leave it up to the person who's consuming the facts to make decisions for themselves. And they may not come up with the same solution or they may not look at it the same way. I have no control over that. I do have control over getting the facts, checking those facts. And it has always been, and I know how some people say, oh, it's more important now than ever before. It's always been important as a journalist to get it right. Yes, we're living in some very challenging times right now. I was really struck, and I was thinking about this when the remarks that Kevin was making. I saw a report over the weekend. A woman down in Louisiana was a QAnon believer in the beginning of the pandemic, thought that JFK Jr. was coming back. And she was laughing about it now, but she said that she believed it because she wanted to believe it. And then it was her husband who finally said, girl, you crazy. And she trusted her husband and said, you know what, I found something that I wanted to believe in. So I found what I could, the facts to back up my belief. And now, full circle, this woman is a proponent of getting vaccinated. Now she's speaking, and she said, because she asked questions, she went to doctors, she went and got the information, accurate information, and then was able to make an informed decision. So that's what it comes down to. And you can hope, pray, and wish all you want for someone. And if someone's not ready to receive the truth, and you can't fix what people refuse to acknowledge. And you can give people knowledge, but they have to acknowledge, not just have the knowledge. But you and Kevin are right. We don't, as journalists, really let people in a little bit more. Let them know how we go about it. There is, when I go on Good Morning America, before I utter a word, there are so many people who have looked at the story that we're going to do, have vetted the person that we're going to interview. Do we make missteps? Yeah, but we're very quick to point out the times that we do. So it's just earning that trust with those people who are consuming, and blogging and I love social media. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of benefits to it, but there are people who have the title of journalist, but truly are not, and they have a blog, but they have people following them. And so it's something that we have tackled for a long time. And as Gwen said, I remember her saying, you gotta have thick skin when you're in this business, and that's fine. That's fine.
Kate and Kylie, let's get you into the conversation. As two young women who are going out into this workforce in the media business, maybe not specifically journalism. Kylie, I know you are a political science major. So, as women who are going out into this workforce, how are you balancing this question of, standing up and being forthright about telling the stories that need to be told and holding the people accountable that need to be held accountable? What are you looking forward to? What are you worried about as you walk out into this wide world? Kate, you go first.
Well, as Robin was saying, I think the thing that I'm looking the most forward to is holding myself accountable and the people that I work with around me accountable to sticking to the truth, and not what I believe the truth to be, but fact, and letting my readers and consumers of the media that I put out make the opinion for themselves. And I think that's what all of this is about, and driving forward is making sure that everybody has the access to the fact so they can make their own opinion.
Great. Kylie?
Yeah, and I think also, Robin mentioned it in her account of the woman who was a QAnon believer. She had a conversation with somebody that she trusted. In this case, it was her husband. But I think that we cannot overemphasize the importance of conversations and of having really difficult or somewhat taboo conversations with people who maybe agree or who maybe don't, and just remain connected, because I think that the more you converse with people from different backgrounds, the more people who don't look like you or don't think like you engage in conversation, I think there is a greater sense of understanding. And I think that you get to have a better sense of how facts can get twisted, but I think you can also understand that these things matter and they affect people in a way that might look different than how it affects you. And if you don't have those conversations, it's really easy to tunnel yourself and isolate yourself in a specific silo of beliefs. But I think that continuing to talk with people from different backgrounds is a really good way moving forward to expand your horizons as well. And that's why forums like this are so awesome.
Great. We've got a question from our audience. Gary wants to know, are there times when the media's attempt at neutrality or in truth-seeking can border on complicity? Who wants to take that one?
I'll let Kevin go with that one first.
Yeah.
Go, Kevin. We haven't heard.
I know there has been this suggestion that, I know there was a lot of debate about, the sense that we are shy about, starkly telling the facts and the truth and have this sense of, because of our sense of balance and fairness of equating each side in a debate, always giving another side. I don't really think that is true overall, though I do understand that since we grow up in journalism, there's a part of the profession that you've taught, you always get the other side, and sometimes there's not another side. But when you look at investigative reporting, investigative reporting is a lot of times the assembling of facts and truths and information that people don't want you to have, and our profession is very aggressive about unearthing things that would only be unearthed by us. And those are presented in stark ways. And so, I guess I would answer maybe yes by neutrality, if you mean that somehow we step back and we don't guide people to the truth. But I think the best journalism does guide people. You're constructing a story in any way. You're leading people to consume the story based on the reporting and the facts and the information that you have and the best available versions of that. And so you can look at that many stories. There are a lot of things that, one example, Marilyn Manson. We just did a really big investigative piece about Marilyn Manson, a rocker, and there were lots of allegations about treatment of women and other things, and they were based on court documents and emails and testimonies. And so I don't know that you can make your judgment on Marilyn Manson however you want, but you have a trail of information in that story that helps to guide you to what you want to think. And so I do think that our profession is good for that. I mean, it's not a vanilla profession, where we put stories out and wow, no one knows what to think. You generally, the best journalism, it helps you think, and sometimes you challenge. And I think we should be there for the challenging of our work. And Robin says something very important, I think, about vulnerability. I think we don't have to be defensive about our work. I mean, and we're all human beings. Where we've left out things or we haven't completed the story, we can say, all right, you have a good point. Where we didn't do something, we can then go back and do it. I mean, it's not a closed profession. The story continues, right? We used to say there was I don't know which editor came up with this, but they used to say the newspaper was the best available version of the truth that day, and sometimes, you don't have every piece, and that's why you continue to follow the story.
And I think it's a very good question that was asked, and it's something that we ask ourselves. And I know on the surface, some stories seem like, oh, come on now, it's so clear. Mm-hmm. But that might be because it's clear to you, might not be clear to the person, someone else. And so again, as I said before, we're not as journalists supposed to invoke our beliefs or thoughts in a story. It's to unearth the facts and let the person who is consuming those facts come up with their own conclusions. And it really strikes me in that I'm not a gotcha journalist, like wait for that gotcha question. No, I'm going to ask you a hard question. I don't look at it as a gotcha question. But what gets me is if I ask what is considered a gotcha or a hard question, criticized. And if you don't, you're softballing. And so it's like, if I'm too aggressive, you're being rude. And if you aren't asking those hard edge questions, then you're being soft. So again, you can't get that in your head as long as you know. And it's something, boy, I look back in my early years, I don't know about you, Kev, but I look back in my early years as a journalist, and I'm much more seasoned now and much more confident, and I'm assured that I'm going about it the right way. And it is so challenging, and we've seen this in recent years because, good grief, and I don't even want to get started about Washington. When, I mean, any other line of business is done like that, people will be fired left and right, but we have politicians, and I know we're going to probably get into this, that it's become such, you're identified so quickly. Are you Republican? Are you Democrat? Are you left? Are you right? And it means that you have to be completely in that left or right, where the vast majority of us are moderates. The vast majority are in the middle, but those in the far right and far left get all the press. They're making all the noise. So I'm not sure if I'm completely answering the good question that was asked, but to know, and I can speak for myself and I can speak for my colleagues at ABC, we're doing our doggone best. We really are. We're not in the back room going, okay, let's color it this way so something will happen. No, we don't have an agenda other than to present the facts and the truth. That's it.
I mean, I think that's one of the really important notes, and it gets to the trust issue, because there is this sense that we get back and it's like we're a cabal behind the curtain, tilting things one way or another, when a lot of times when we make mistakes or we fail to leave something out, it's just human error. I mean, because we're like in every profession, we're human beings. People make mistakes, and I think that's where the vulnerability comes in. Sometimes we can own up to our mistakes and let people know how they happen. It's not like we deliberately did this. Somebody made a mistake. That's all.
So Jackie from our audience wants to know if you think that communicating truth and gaining trust in reporting is sometimes more of a challenge for women, minorities, or distant voices.
Another good question. Yes. The answer to your question, to that question, yeah, it is more difficult, because as I'll speak for myself, as a Black woman, people automatically assume things about me, that because I'm a Black gay woman, so they automatically assume that I must think a certain way or whatnot. And it could be so far from the truth, but they'll look at me. First of all, they look at me as a woman. Then they see Black woman. Then they see it. That's how it always tickled me, especially when I was in sports journalism. And people would say, is it more difficult being Black or more difficult being a woman? I'm like, I've always been a Black woman, so I don't know. I can't step outside and go, because this is who I am. But yeah, we are challenged a little bit more. But it's kind of what I was saying earlier. I enjoy exceeding expectations. I don't look at that as a negative. I don't get angry because people are going to look at me differently. I'm like, bring it on. I know me. I know what I stand for. I know the work that I do, and I stand by it. And I am so grateful that in time, In the early years at Good Morning America, when I showed up, I wasn't quite received as I am now. And part of it is I let people in. I shared the loss of when Hurricane Katrina came along and I went down home to report. I was newly a co-anchor with Charlie Gibson and Diane Sawyer, and I cried like a baby on the air. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to turn people off. It did just the opposite. They were like, wow, you're really letting us in, because it was my home and I knew the devastation and how long it was going to take to recover from that. And that really taught me something right then, that we can be, and I remember early on in my career, and I thought I should have gotten a position and I didn't. And I was straight out of school. And I remember telling my mom and my daddy, oh, I didn't get it because I'm a Black woman. The man's holding me down. And my mama just so sweetly goes, honey, well, have you ever thought maybe it's because you're not good enough yet? Okay, well, so just slow your roll a little bit. And I was like,
Mom.
oh. Yeah, I know, hey, Mom, come on. So I think I know for myself, I'm not quick to look at, I don't see the glass half empty or half full. I see the glass, okay? And so it's all about perspective. But yes, I have found, I don't know about Kevin, but I have found to be challenged more because of the color of my skin when it comes to this industry.
Kevin, would you like to weigh in on that?
Everything Robin said, I'll let her have the word. She can speak for me anytime.
Okay. As a women-centered institution, we are educating young women who will face a sexist culture that's kind of beyond their control. There was a recent article in a journal, Personality and Social Psychology. And in that article, they talked about how, this notion of female empowerment is really, it kind of diminishes people's ability to see the real problem being a system of discrimination and patriarchy, right? How do you think Gwen was able to achieve everything she did in the face of this double bind of being a Black woman? And what do we tell our students, right? What do we tell Kate? What do we tell Kylie as they're going out into a society that is stacked against them? This goes into that question of resilience.
No, it does. The reason I go like stacked against it, because I don't want them going out there thinking, even though it is, but you can't, I can only speak for myself. Again, I mean, I knew those, I'm not Pollyanna. I knew those things were out there, but I didn't dwell on them. And how was Gwen able to? Because Gwen Ifill was the best. She was good at what she does. Again, she said the reason she got her first job is that she exceeded expectations. And so I don't want these two young women who are with us on the panel, don't be scared going out there. Yeah. But to have your eyes open and to be aware, but don't go looking for it. Don't go looking for if something doesn't happen for you, that it's, oh, because I'm a woman, or, oh, it's because of this. I have just found that when you go looking for it, you will find it. But the best way to go about it is just to be your absolute best. I was just talking to somebody recently, and I wish I could remember the person's name, and it was a woman I was speaking to, and I was asking her, oh gosh, it was Judge Judy. Oh my gosh. So Judge Judy, who is, she's got now her own, Justice Judy is now her new streaming. She's 79 years old. And I asked her, because this woman is somebody who has, she has negotiated, this woman is paid big time. And I asked her, like, what is your advice to a young woman or entering the field? And she said, be the best. Be the best. And don't let anybody else value you other than you valuing yourself and knowing your value. That's another thing. Know your value. And don't let what other people say or what you see on the internet or anything like that, surrounding yourself with a strong nucleus of people that aren't necessarily going to, and Gwen said the same thing, I don't want my circle to all agree with, I want a difference of opinion. I want to be challenged. And I just really feel that to go out into the workforce right now, and we hear about female empowerment and this, that, and the other, knowing, yes, have your eyes wide open, but just stare them down and just say, I am here, I'm going to be heard, and be the absolute best at whatever you choose to do in this field. Be the best. Be your best. Be your best.
You know what? I love to piggyback on that. I'm not a woman, but I've hired a lot of women and promoted a lot of women and empowered a lot. I think, you know, one of the things that it does start with, if just excellence, you know, and working on your game and being good. That's your superpower. You know, when you're really good, you know, then it gives you more confidence and more credentials, and you can call more shots. You know, and I think courage is really a hard thing to come by. It's hard to come by no matter what stage you are, you know, to be able to be your own self and to have enough confidence. And part of it, I think, when you're starting out, you know, say to Kylie and Kate, is to draw on success. You know, you know, we got some tremendously successful, look at Robin and Michelle, and you go on, and things are happening. I mean, that never happened before. And so, you know, the president of ABC News is a Black woman now. You know, that never happened before. And at MSNBC and my old paper, the Dallas Morning News, you know, there's a Black female editor there in Houston and in Miami Herald. There are lots of just women, you know, taking their place and running things and having success. And I think you can draw on that and be inspired by that, you know, and come and get your piece of it, you know, because it's a welcoming industry. I mean, one of the things that I say about this industry now is we talked a lot about how, yeah, it's become more democratized in some way because anybody can hop up and say they can start something and say they're journalists, but it's also created so many more opportunities and entry points. You know, the digital era is just new jobs in audience and social and how to engage in lots of different platforms and verticals, and in every, whether before, when you're just a newspaper or a broadcast outlet, you know, you did a certain thing. Now all of these things do everything. You know, something happens on ABC, it's on Hulu the next day. Yep. You know, everybody's producing documentaries, digital shows. It's just opened up the field. And you grew up in the era. You all are growing up in the era when that happened. It's natural habitat for you, you know? And so you have some advantages, and take those advantages, be confident, and look to people who to be inspired, you know, and you say, wow, it's good to be able to look at Robin Roberts, you know, and many others and be inspired by that.
Success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. Look at those who have been successful in the field that you are pursuing. And Kevin, thank you for mentioning our new president, Kim Godwin. And when she started that first day, I almost had tears in my eyes because she's up there and she's addressing the news division at ABC. And she said the 3 C's are her cornerstones. She said that she has the confidence to do the job because she has worked almost every job in television, news director, local, network, has done that, has been really, really, I mean, I don't want to say, because it seems so especially when it's a woman or a Black woman qualified. Of course she's qualified, but she has the confidence to do the job because of her work. She said that she has the courage to make the tough decisions. She's the boss. And sometimes it means making some really hard decisions, but she has the courage to do it. Her 3rd C, clarity, that she was going to be very clear with us and make sure that we knew where we stood, where she stands on things. So the courage, confidence, and clarity. And it's the first time I heard that, and to see Kim Godwin up there directing the news division as she is, and I would add a 3rd one, empathy. we don't empathize enough. I don't want somebody's sympathy. Just be empathetic. Just try and put yourself in the shoes of someone else. But I couldn't agree with you more that there are a lot of successful people, successful women. Success leaves clues. Be your own person. I didn't want to be the next whatever, but there were attributes from different people, role models that I had, and I would glean a little bit here, a little bit there, personalize it, and make it my own.
You know, I think this is an important point, you know, and I don't want to belabor this question, but, you know, to bring it back to Gwen, I mean, Gwen was young and successful. She started, you know, there was no digital era then, you know, she's working at the Boston Herald back there, and I was still in college at the time looking at her. She's just one grade level up, you know, and I'm watching her break into our profession in a difficult time in Boston. You know, some of this has been well documented, what she faced when she was at the Boston Herald and lots of other places along the way. And to be able to take some of that, shake some of that off, you know, she struggled too, but I'll say along the way, and I think this is a hallmark, she made herself accessible to other people who wanted to achieve that. Always so many other people who looked up to her, and she looked back down to people. Like they may have been looking up, but she was looking, you know, around corners and helping people at every time. Always had time for people, and it's a really important thing. You know, it's both, and I think she took energy off of that. You know, I remember introducing her as one of the last things. She was getting a big award. I'll never forget that night. It was the National Press Club Award. I can't remember the name of the award, but it was the big award that the National Press Club gives, and a bunch of people there. I know Michelle was there, but Abby Phillip came. I had a table. I think I just left the Post. I was in transition at the ESPN, and Abby Phillip, who went on to do, she was just starting out. Abby wanted to meet Gwen, you know, and it really had a big impact. She told me how much she really admired Gwen, and look, Abby went on to have a lot of good success and host her own show and everything else, but that kind of connection, you know, was really important. And I think find the people that you admire and look up to, and hey, make that connection, at least mentally and inspirational.
It's great. It's great. Do you think that there are issues of truth and resilience that we may not be really thinking about right now in the moment, but that will become major issues in 2022? I mean, obviously, nobody could have foreseen a pandemic. So looking back, right, we know. But looking forward, are there any issues or things that you can think about where resilience is going to really come into play?
That's a tough one. Like, as you said, I mean, here we are still in a pandemic. I remember when we left home, many of us, when we left home in March of 2020, and I'm here in my home in Connecticut, where I broadcast Good Morning America from the basement. By the way, that is my dog behind. He's waiting for somebody to come, delivery or whatever. So that is something that is real. It's not a statue. But from my basement, broadcast Good Morning America for 8 months, and really thought maybe I'd be here for 8 days. I thought maybe a couple of weeks. And here we are still now coming to the end of 21, and we're still in it. It's going better. So it's very difficult to say. And to me, resilience can be for anything that comes our way. And I find myself not trying to predict what is going to happen in 22. I'm just so happy that today that they were able to actually, a bipartisan deal was finally made today. Oh my gosh, stop the press. So that gives me hope for going forward. But it was election week, and some things really, happened that really looks like the midterms are going to be in 22, going to be very, very interesting. So I think that that's going to really come in handy, resilience and resiliency going forward, thinking about 2022.
Kylie, might you think about that in terms of politics going forward? Is resilience something we're going to need?
Definitely. I think one of the things that was most celebrated in the pandemic was like the resiliency of humanity. You talked about the features of nurses or teachers or some of these people who day in and day out just kept showing up and they adapted to a changing circumstances. And so when you see something like not just a roads and bridges infrastructure bill, but a human infrastructure bill and an approach that would include things like paid family leave or things that would hopefully allow greater support for childcare, some of those things. I think we've seen so many instances of how humans have had to be even more resilient than traditional circumstances as a result of the pandemic. And that has kind of reordered our policy agenda a little bit. And I think there's a lot greater emphasis on holistic support for individuals, for families, for women, for people of color. And I think that we're going to see how that impacts the midterm elections. That was one of the things that probably got Biden elected and is going to likely determine the course of the midterm elections as well.
Kate, what's resilience going to look like for you in the next year, too?
Kind of going off of what Kylie was saying, I really do believe that the women that ran in the 2018 midterm elections that maybe didn't get the outcome that they wanted and have been waiting for their shot really need to take it in 2022. And that's what resilience looks like to me, is all of these people getting back up and fighting for what they believe in, but not only in politics, women and people of color that need to go out for these jobs that they've always been looking for. Now's the time to do it. And that's what resilience really looks like for me in the next coming years, seeing these political landscapes changing because people are wanting to push humanity forward.
That's great. Ken, let me throw this question to you. You know, in Gwen's book, The Breakthrough, she asked the question, why does identity politics play such a big role in the national conversation? And Kate, mentioned so many of these women who stepped forward in the previous election, who didn't quite make it. But are identity and democracy inextricably linked? What is that question? How is identity linked to this national debate, this national discussion about politics?
Well, look, I think we all want to be seen, and that's part of identity. I mean, we're made up of multiple identities. As Robin said, she was born, she was Black, and she's a woman. She doesn't separate that. I mean, I'm always a Black man, because I started that way, right? And I evolved, but I'm a big hoops fan, I'm a jazz fan, I have other identities that I plug into. And I think most of us are like that. I think when we get into identity politics, though, some things are so core to people, and it may be your race, it may be ethnicity, it may be your gender, it may be your religion, it may be a subject you care about, education, because you raise kids and you don't like the way public education is. And so that's where identity politics comes into play, was that people care about things and they want to be seen, for who they are and what they stand for. And there is a place in democracy for identity politics. I mean, that is the nature of democracy, that people can push forward on the things that they really care about, and you can do something about them. You can organize around them. That's how the country got better, right? People organized and said, we got to stop some things, we got to push for change. People went in streets, and we have processes for that, right? You can go organize and create your own voting rights group. I mean, athletes did that. You know, I know Robin so far with sports, they did that with a voting rights group, the LeBron and others form. And so whoever you are, you care about something, you can organize around it. We have lots of nonprofits and advocacy groups, and then you can channel that interest and you can change. That's what democracy is about. Like, it's that combustion. You know, you go to vote, you don't like people in office, get some more people in there, bring people together and do that. And you can write, you know, you can express yourself. And so all of this comes together in our politics, and sometimes uncomfortable for us. You know, we just like, man, this is too much. And it looks like the whole fabric of democracy is about to be torn down. And that's part of the conversation. Let's be honest, right? That's part of the conversation that is happening in the aftermath of the last election is whether our democracy is in danger, where our institutions are being challenged. But the fact that you have a democracy and you can have that discussion and people can press against it, you know? And so that's, you know, nothing has happened yet, right? We're still here talking about it. And that to me, that's what I think, you know, how identity politics intersects with democracy.
This is for anyone. A number of political scientists have said that, you know, the result of the January 6th insurrection has done irreparable harm to our democracy. Do you believe that that's true?
Irreparable? I mean, it's you know, sure, has it damaged? Has it? Absolutely, but I wouldn't go far as to say it can't be repaired. And for us to think I'm tickled sometimes. Things have happened in this world before we got here, folks. There's some things that have really gone on in this country and this world, and people survived, and they're better for it, and we will too. That's not to diminish what we saw or to minimize at all what happened. And it has made people really take a very hard look. It's something I still, gosh, I wasn't working that day, but I remember seeing my colleagues, and one who's such a talented young woman, Rachel Scott, is just a phenomenal young journalist, young Black woman. And to see her there in the midst, and people are you just don't know what they're going to have. But you know what? She stood her ground and she reported, and she didn't let her thoughts of what was going on that day affect her reporting. But I hope it's not irreparable what happened, but it certainly was something that unfortunately this happened on our watch. And years from now, when people look back, it's going to be something that's very, very hard to know that this happened during our time here in civilization in this country. It's going to be something that should be remembered forever. Should be remembered, but not to say that it should be something that we can't overcome and be better from.
Kylie, Kate, either one of you want to chime in on that?
Go ahead, Kate.
Oh no, I was going to say that I agree with Robin, but I also, to some extent, can see the damage that it's done, not as an event, but what it symbolizes. And it symbolizes the citizens' distrust in our democratic process and what our democracy is founded on. And again, Kylie and I are both, this is what we grew up with, is seeing this divide in our country and in our nation. I mean, I was born 2 weeks before 9/11, so my entire life has been this post 9/11 society. So this was not what I was expecting. Obviously, I was not expecting this, but it's not surprising to me because this is all I have ever seen in our nation. I think that hopefully we can come back from this and find this middle ground that Robin was talking about. People are taking a deeper look at this and seeing where these holes are and how we can mend this. But I think it's something that we're going to have to continually look back on to remind ourselves to move forward.
I do think also, though, hundreds of years ago, as we were building a constitution, there was great thought into ensuring that a singular person or a singular event is not going to completely upend an entire institution. And I think you almost have seen the resilience of democracy within the United States over the past 200 and some odd years. Like, let's not take away from the fact that in 2020, more people voted in a presidential election than ever before. Like, that is a good thing for democracy. You saw extensive
real life.
Right. You saw more people of color organizing and getting to the polls and ensuring that there was equal and adequate representation. That is why passing things like the John Lewis Voting Rights Act are so important, because the best way to strengthen democracy is to get as many voices participating as possible. And so when you talk about, is it irreparable? If this causes more people to engage with democracy, if this causes more people to write or to organize and assemble and actually show up to the polls, then it's not wasted. It was definitely a really dark day, but I don't think it's fair to say, at least at this point, that it's irreparable.
I 100% agree. Yeah.
Great. So we have a few questions from our student watch party. So in what ways have you found new passions throughout your career? And what advice would you give to new graduates who are looking to feel passionate about their work?
Well, look, I'll hop in and just say the best thing about this profession is it's a continuing education. I like to say I could not have afforded to pay for the education I've gotten out of journalism, what I've learned just through experiences. And so I feel like I got a gift. And so I think that's it. Be open to all of the possibilities. Don't script your career out, and on paper. Let it evolve, open yourself up to new opportunities, new challenges. I was at the Washington Post for many, many, many years. Never thought I'd leave. I got invited. I got approached to come to ESPN to start something, which to me was like going back into the future somewhat of it was like the equivalent of when we started a Black newspaper at Boston University and starting something that was aimed at Black audiences, the Undefeated at ESPN, a startup inside a big company. And, from there, other things happen. And so I just, throughout, being a political reporter or being a columnist, it's just open yourself up to possibility. And I think that you will have a happy life in our profession. If you let things, like they say in sports, sometimes say, let the game come to you. That is a good model, I think.
Kevin, you're preaching to the choir right here with me. When I think about how when I started off, I wanted to be a sports journalist. That was just and I had on my whiteboard in my room, though I said success, though I misspelled success, only had one C in success. But okay, everything worked out. But I said, I want to work in X amount of size market for this amount of time, and then a mid-sized market, and then I want to be at ESPN. And I was very scripted, as you will, early on. I had no idea that one day I'd be the co-anchor of Good Morning America. Wasn't on my whiteboard. Had no desire to go into hard news. I'm a sports junkie. I was out on the tennis courts this morning. You have to, it's good to have a game plan, and I did. But journalism, moving from sports to news, and I was a little anxious about that, not because I didn't think I could do it. It was because my passion was about sports. But then I realized, no, my passion is journalism. And I just enjoy talking about sports, but I enjoy storytelling. And journalism is journalism, whether you're talking about the Saints or you're talking about President Biden. And I really find that to stay energized, as the question said, and how do you find new passion? I just, I started my own production company. I executive produced Mahalia Jackson's story, and Danielle Brooks was the star, and it was nominated for an Emmy. And it was just so exciting to find different avenues. So I think just what you said, Kevin, that, yeah, you kind of have a game plan, your little script, but you're going to go off script a lot. And let me tell you, folks, it's not the accomplishments. And I will say this even about Gwen, and boy, I mean, we could spend the whole time talking about the vast list of accomplishments. It's what she overcame. And that's what you're going to remember most of all in going forward in your careers. You're going to remember what you overcame to reach that accomplishment, not so much the accomplishment itself, but go for it. And just be good citizens. Be good citizens going about it.
Sometimes you just don't know what's behind that door until you kick it open.
That's right. Kick it open. That's right.
Okay, we have another question from one of our professors here on campus, Kathy Mercier. She wants to know the information that you seek and the information that you find and share with your audiences can sometimes be very difficult. Difficult for us as an audience to hear, but also difficult for you, right? How do you maintain your resilience in those difficult moments?
Wow, we did a story. Did a story this week on Madagascar, and that was tough to see how climate change has it's not a war, it's not politics, it's just climate change has caused famine there. And so at 7:45 to see these starving children. And David Muir, my colleague, was there, had spent time there. And it was difficult to watch, and I knew it was going to be difficult for people at home who are getting ready for school or their job, or they're getting the kids out. They're having breakfast and they see these kids, but sometimes we find that you have to do these stories. It's okay to be uncomfortable, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable doing it when you know the intent is to shine a light. And I still get choked up thinking about it this week and some of the reporting that we did. And sure, what I'd love to, let's talk about Dancing with the Stars, and let's have some fun this morning, and we did later on in the morning. But it was just finding that balance. And what spurs me on, and what gives me hope in that, when I think of what does resilience mean to me, hope. Yeah. It means hope.
Look, I think that one of the things is about our profession is we have our careers, and sometimes our careers in journalism require us to be on. I mean, there are many times the editor, I gotta go contact somebody. They may have been, hosting a birthday party with their kids. They've got to totally get out of that and go pursue the mass shooting because they're the closest one to it. And how to perform in those under pressure, we know it takes a toll. And I think it's being mindful of, because of the particular nature of our profession, that people are human beings. I think those human touches are important to, like everybody else, to be able to have time to get some time off, to play tennis, as Robin said, to have some other passions outside of it, because just the sheer, in some cases, the gravity, the emotional toll. There are many times, and I know Robin feels this, where some stories just take an emotional toll, and whatever your filters and your natural way of knowing how to cover a story, what to get, how to put it together, it doesn't change at some point just the human dimension of it. And so I think part of that is we also have a right to be human beings. And I think that, and to let the rest of the world know we are too human beings. and we're going to do the best at our profession. But there've been so many stories where at the end you're just like, man, that was just tough. It was just a tough day, and so I think it's important to remember that profession is not the only thing that defines you, and I think too often, don't let that be what defines you. You define it. We're happy to have you come into profession. Don't let it define you.
For one of our students wants to know, has there ever been anything that's happened in your profession that made you want to walk away? And why didn't you? Like, what changed your mind? What was that element of resilience that said, no, I'm sticking with this?
That is, I don't know about Kevin, but I've never been asked that, and never really thought about that. Yeah, I mean, shoot, there are times that you get so frustrated and that you want to, but it's just life. And when you're working with, but it wasn't any, I can't say there was no story, there was no, that it was too much. But I will say, my sister, Sally Ann Roberts, for 40 years, she was a news anchor and reporter in New Orleans. She was considered the Oprah of New Orleans. In fact, still to this day, when I go to New Orleans, I'm not Robin, I'm Sally Ann baby sister. And I love that. That's how I'm known there. And she finally walked away on her terms because of not being able to. She saw so much going on right now politically in that, and she didn't want to be muted anymore. And so she decided to leave her profession and is doing some nonprofit work and other things and getting people out to vote. And she got people vaccinated, these things that she would not have been able to do in her job as a news journalist. But there was never a moment that I wanted to walk away because of a story. If anything, it made me dig in my heels more and saying, I want to stay. I want to stay and make sure that the story is being told correctly. By correctly meaning, I want to make sure that people have the right information to make informed decisions for themselves. But never was there anything that made me want to walk away. But there was a lot that made me wanted to stay.
Look, there are a lot of people that have left this profession. We're sorry to see leave. And I've watched a lot of people, and particularly, journalists of color, not all of them, who just couldn't see their ambitions realized, couldn't break through. And that, in many ways, that's sad. All it did is make me want to stay, right? When you see these things happen, that we owe that back. And so for me, a lot of times you get frustrated. I think about all of the pioneers, and our ancestors, and the people who made it possible for us to be in a position. What do I owe back? And so sometimes I say this to some of our young people, and they get frustrated. I say, look, I know how difficult it is. I don't want to minimize getting trolled on Twitter and the things, because you can get recited. But I say, look, we just got to remember, Thurgood Marshall, to break Jim Crow and go to the Supreme Court, win like 29 or 32 cases, and go into courtrooms down south. They had to be snuck in, and people and hidden in houses and in back roads under death threats. And our journalists, covering the Emmett Till trial, they couldn't stay at hotels. They got to carry their own lunches, filing stories, the role that the Black press and bringing stories that when these reporters couldn't work anywhere else, under great threat. And so you have to sometimes put perspective in the history of the country of how we got there. And I try to sometimes just look back on that. You don't have to look very far. I can look back on Ida B. Wells, people calling her to investigate lynchings. Somebody thought they got lynched, and Ida B. Wells comes there. They call you, but you don't have to go that far. It's a lineage all the way up, not very far back that our pioneers paved the way. So we have to keep paving that way. And so that's what I think about. man, I got to stay in it as long as I can. So Kate can come into it, Kylie, others can come into it and make it better.
That, I think, is a wonderful message for us to end on. Let's give you all a few minutes to just kind of wrap things up. Final thoughts. What if when we're looking down today, what is she thinking? What would she want to say to all of us here today?
Well, if I may, first of all, just very grateful to everyone for this honor and for this lively discussion. Kate and Kylie, I agree with what Kevin was saying. Am I the only one name doesn't start with a K? I mean, I just thought about that. But so excited for them. And I lastly just want to say, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to be okay. And it's okay not to have all the answers. And if you're not certain in what direction you want to go in right now, that's okay. Be good to you. And know that it is a noble profession. And the thing that you being here today, proximity is power. You put yourself in position for good things to happen to you today by being a part of this university. That tells me a lot. And so you have your own formula for success. Everybody's looking to see how somebody got to where they are now. And just know that we had fear as well, that even the most successful people, we still have that fear. And all fear needs is the eye of a needle to get through, and it can consume you. But don't let fear keep you from your destiny.
Wow. Kevin?
Man, I love what Robin says as usual. Don't let fear keep you from your destiny. I think if Gwen were here, I mean, the first thing she'd be smiling. I know that Robin got an award named her. That would be the first thing. It's like, man, this is so cool, because she would say, that's me right there. That's my sister, right? But it's also just think like, Gwen had a way of taking herself seriously when it needed to be, but not taking herself so seriously, to be able to have fun and not let the weight of the world crush her, not let it just consume her, that there's so much that you can, and that we should be just thankful to just be able to look around and breathe and live in this moment. And I think it's important, to have that sense of ambition, which is important, but not ambition in the wrong way, ambition to want to achieve goals, but not to step on people along the way, not be so worried about your fate and what's going to happen to you and the politics and this and that. Gwen had a way of going about herself in the world that I never saw her change, which is saying something. No matter how big she got, she's the same person that I met at the very beginning. And if you can, live through the world like that, you would have accomplished something really important.
Kylie, Kate, we'll give our students the last word. You're carrying the torch of Gwen Ifill. What does that mean to you? Kate, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know whether Kylie was going to say something. I am just so honored to have been able to sit on this panel with such inspirational people. Again, having a classmate like Kylie makes conversation even more interesting. To have somebody that I could talk to. Carrying the torch of Gwen Ifill is definitely a big one. I see it in the comms department. And in the Ifill College all the time. Every student sees what the name they are carrying on with each degree that comes out of the program. And I couldn't be more grateful to the faculty and the staff that have surrounded us, that have taught us her legacy and point us in the direction of finding truth in journalism and in media studies like she did. And I am so grateful for this education and for Simmons University every day. And I just wanted to thank everyone for having us here.
Kylie?
Yeah, definitely an honor to be on this panel, to be a part of the Gwen Ifill College and a Simmons University student. I think the thing that I try and remember is that she accomplished amazing things in her career, but what people remember most about her legacy is who she was. It was the fact that she was the same person as she rose. It was the fact that she was committed to truth, but also really loved to laugh. And I think that it is inspiring and a high challenge to live up to that legacy day in and day out, not just when I'm on the job, but when I'm interacting with friends or someone I run into on the street. I think that to embody her legacy goes beyond a 9-to-5 job, and it's something that I hope I can come close to.
Yes. Wonderful. Don't let your fear keep you from your destiny, right? Thank you all so much for joining us today. Ms. Robin Roberts, congratulations on your award. We're so proud to have you among our family now. And Kevin, thank you so much for joining us as well. Thank you to our student audience and to all of you who tuned in as well. Thank you so much for joining us for the Ifill Forum. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.